Welcome.
Hello.
Hola.
Welcome to episode
Cinco.
Cinq. They're quite similar, Spanish and French. Like they just
They are.
add an extra syllable.
Is it the Latin thing though? I know there's like Latin that connects every language.
Is that
Not like
so?
Latin. I think it's like,
I didn't know that.
I don't know, some kind of basis.
Because English is very different to like any other language. It's not like similar, is it?
Maybe not.
Like 5 doesn't sound like any other foreign number 5, you know?
5 sounds like fear.
What language is that?
German for 4.
Fear.
I said it in the last episode, do you remember?
Drei,
Fear.
Fear. Oh.
5.
Is that 5?
That's 5 in German.
So what's fear?
4.
Oh, wait, so what episode are we on?
5. You had pure confusion in your face.
I don't know where we are, what we're doing, but I do know what today's topic is.
That's great. That's all we really need at the end of the day.
So, we are answering another little dilemma question that we got through. By the way, if you guys want to get involved in sending us your dilemmas for the podcast, you just need to go and follow us over on Instagram. It's at FarRajaX or at Devamsha. And when we post a question box on our story to get involved and share your dilemmas, we will be trying our best to advise you via the podcast. And you guys can also get involved in the comments, share your thoughts, share your experiences. And we all just want to help each other out.
Yeah. I want to make it easier to solve all our problems together.
Exactly that. So today's topic, moving out of home as a young brown girl and constantly getting pressured to get married. Dun dun dun. I feel like this is such a common problem.
Yeah, hugely common problem. And that pressure of getting married, man, is real. It's heavy.
So do you have that experience? Because I feel like I'm very strange as a brown girl not having, like, I've not had the pressure to get married.
Do you put it on yourself though?
I've put it on to an extent, because yeah, there's certain things I put pressure on myself, but when it comes to when a lot of people talk about the pressure of getting married, it's all coming from their families. Mm-hmm. Even though I've not had the pressure to get married, I've definitely been told you can do X, Y, Z when you're married.
Yes, that's what I've had. Yeah.
And that there is so annoying.
I know. It's like, what is post-married me just this amazing like superwoman that can do anything she wants?
Is that just the free version of me? Like, yeah. It's just so strange to like think that, oh, you're
I'm like a downgraded version of myself. Yeah. It implies that what you are now isn't good enough as well, which is not great for self-esteem.
Or you're just not ready to live life on your own terms. You know what I mean? It's like you're still in your, I don't know, maybe it's an element of you like not being an adult until you get married. I wonder if that's the mentality.
Legally, I'm an adult.
In a culture, I guess, yeah, legally. Yeah. But culturally, I feel like you're not considered an adult or like ready to make your own decisions until. But the wild part is getting married is one of the most important, like influential decisions for the rest of your life. Like that is a lifelong commitment. It's not the same as choosing a career or choosing to live somewhere. These things are kind of like temporary. The intention is that is your lifelong partner. So why is that the number one priority to almost choose first before even figuring out what you want or yourself?
That's a question I've asked myself a lot, Farah, because like I've battled between thinking like, is it being tied to a man that is somehow giving me more importance? What is this waiting behind being a wife in our culture? Like I've never understood it, and I've asked a lot of questions around it myself, but I've had the exact same experience where I've never been pressured to get married, but I always, and my parents, they have come full circle. They don't do it anymore, but they have also gone the other way. So same thing happened where you can do XYZ once you're married. You can travel once you're married. You can start, it was even in a business sense, because I used to bang on about businesses a lot. You can do that once you're married. You can, it's always on pause. Like first sort out your education, get a job, find a husband. And I'm like, But more recently, a couple of months ago, my nanny was asking my mum, why am I not married yet? All this stuff. And my mum responded to her saying, oh, she's got her own job now. Like, she's sorting her own life out. She doesn't need marriage anymore. And that made me think, like, wait, were those two things like somehow connected? Yeah. Or like, yeah, mutually exclusive. It's like, so now that I've shown you how independent, capable, and like, I don't know, the fact that I've done life by myself without needing to be married, not to say I'm single, like I have a partner, we're just not married yet. But because we've done all these things, does that mean now I don't need marriage? Like, what was it there for? And that's what made me think, like, is it just this milestone that you've got in your head because of the cultural traditions that we have, that you thought that that's something I needed to, like, it was a tick box. So then all these questions I've been asking about, what does it mean to be a wife and why is it so important? It's actually not even important because it was a tick box at the end of the day anyway. It's just this thing you need to do.
Yeah, I think there's like different parts to it, because I think a lot of it, when you're a parent, I think the measure of success of a parent, part of it is that your kid gets married, I think, and they have their own family. I think that's why they put so much emphasis on it, and I think they almost get the pressure from their own families, because like you said, your like grandparents are also raising it. So I feel like the pressure's like filtered down because it's seen as this thing that to be a successful individual as an adult, you have to be married. It's so strange. Even though I feel like in our generation, there's been a lot of changes, but obviously because generations before, I still have those mentalities. You get the pressures of, oh, well, when are you getting married? Or, but you can't move out yet because you ain't married. Or
the like moving out thing, that I think that was probably like before I actually moved out, I was probably not supposed to move out until I was married. And I never clocked that. Like, because I was born and raised like in the UK, I thought, as you would, I thought it was normal to grow up and you leave your home for uni and then you don't actually come back. Like, I never thought there was the coming back. But then because of like dysfunctional growing up and stuff, when I left, I was like, I'm outie.
Never coming back.
I ain't ever coming back. And like, I knew I wasn't coming back.
So did you never come back after uni?
No.
Oh,
so I moved out. But then I also like, because I moved quite far away, like I moved to Scotland.
Other country.
Yeah, like I left. And then I stayed in Scotland for my grad job. So then there was no actual physical way of me coming back. But then I knew I wouldn't be, like, I never intentionally looked for jobs near where my parents lived. So I knew I didn't want to live there. And I knew that there would be pressure to live at home if I did get a job near my parents'
It's kind of hard to, like, live out while being, like, really close to your parents, because it's almost like the question is, what's the point? Like, you may as well just live at home.
Yeah.
And you can't tell them, it's because I don't want to live with you.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I think, well, yeah, it's just, it depends on, like, how like healthy your home life is.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you and yourself wouldn't see the point. I don't know. I guess there's different elements. Some people just genuinely want the independence, but they do still have like a healthy home life. Yeah. But they just really seek the like figuring out their own life and their ability to be independent. I see that a lot.
Yeah.
But I think the hard part is when I guess your family have a negative reaction to it and they don't want you to move out, or if you're trying to move out but still be close and they don't want you to move out anyway, there's going to be more obstacles potentially because you're so close that you may as well live at home, and that's always going to be like an argument as to why you should stay.
Yeah. And financially as well, like it's a huge decision to move out, especially post uni or like outside of moving out for the purposes of uni. It's a lot to think, because that's actually growing up. Like you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your bills, you have other expenses as a result of living by yourself. Like you don't have a shared fridge that's always stocked.
Yeah.
You know, like there's different things that you have to think about when you move out, obviously. But then, and I think you were talking about this meme earlier as well, right? Like if you don't have that good relationship with your family or your home life. And when I say good relationship, I don't mean like you're in turmoil. I think it's very normal to just grow out of living with your parents or living in a busy household sometimes as well, especially if you're working from home, especially if, you know, you have a busy lifestyle and you just need your own, like, you need more than a room.
Just need space.
Yeah.
I think that's normal. As you're like becoming an adult, I think it's normal to just like need your own space and your own, like, just to be in your own company a bit. It's very hard. It can feel a bit suffocating when you're constantly, like, you're at work and then you come home and you're constantly around people. Some people might love that, but I think as you get older, I genuinely just think everyone needs to experience living on their own.
I firmly
before the
believe that
marriage, I find it really frustrating that the marriage is placed. There's more emphasis on that than like figuring yourself out before you like join forces with someone else. Like, why aren't we telling young girls, young boys to actually like go away and like figure your own shit out, and like actually you as a person, like, what are your values? What do you want out of life? And then once you know that, then go and find a person that matches that, or like you're compatible with, or use that like new self-confidence and your self-assuredness to actually then be okay with, okay, now I'm ready to settle down, I'm ready to join forces with another person. It's always like the backwards, like it happens in reverse for some reason, and I don't really understand that, because I think living alone is a really important like life experience.
Yeah, huge life experience. Like, even as someone, I've lived with people in flats, I've lived with people who aren't my family, and I still like really needed the time that I spent alone. I fully needed it. And when I took it, it wasn't like I didn't decide to live by myself. I was like in a situation where I just happened to be living by myself because of like external factors. But that was such an important period of life for me. And like, I probably didn't realize how much I needed it at the time. But I think, especially if you're going from family home, South Asian family home, to living by yourself, it's like, if we're talking about tick boxes, that is 100% a big one you need to tick as part of your life. Yeah, before you live with someone else.
Tick box, because I don't think it's automatically there. It's not one of those things that people are expecting of you, but you kind of have to create that for yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like typically South Asian households are chaotic. When you grow up like that, it's really hard to get a grip of like who you are as an individual. So I think that time is really important to figure all that out. I feel like if you don't really need that, or you haven't really experienced that, it's a bit different, because maybe you did have the safe space to like explore who you were, and the four walls that you grew up in were enough for that. But a lot of the time in like our culture and just the way we grow up, sometimes it isn't enough, and you need the actual physical space to do that.
You actually do, because like, I don't know what your family were like, but I find a lot of South Asians are quite, I don't think nosy is the right word. Maybe like more interested than I would like them to be. But my family were so like nosy about how I spent my time at home. Like, if I wanted to go to the gym, it's a big deal. I'm going to the gym. If I go to the gym daily, she's going to the gym every day. Like,
who's she? Pick up on the most stupid things.
Yeah, like that's why fitness, even now, it's so hard for me to like accept as something that I want to do, because I'm like very conscious of the fact that I'm embracing it. But even like meeting certain friends, being on the phone, like everything was never your like business. Yeah, monitored, and also like you were never truly alone.
Yeah.
With your hobbies and interests, like you couldn't really take something up. And again, I just don't know if that is more specific to like my family and like the way I was raised, because I had quite strict parents as well that were quite controlling for me, because I was the eldest. But moving out, I was able to like do what I wanted with my free time and know that I'm not being judged for it as well, and it's not impacting like how someone sees me, or like how my character is being interpreted by people that like people I respect and stuff, you know? So yeah,
I think that's what I was like trying to explain in like a previous episode, you know, when I was saying how I felt like I had to be busy, but it was with the right things. Like I had to be doing the stuff that they were like approving of, and had to be seen doing that. And if I was doing anything else, it'd be really stressful, because there was so much judgment and criticism for just like simply doing things that I wanted to do, like just using my time how I wanted to. And it's so strange, because I don't know about you, but when you actually get to the point where like you're living alone, or you're you have, even at uni, to be honest, I feel like I did struggle to begin with to actually like do the things I wanted to, just because I was in this habit of monitoring myself so much and like monitoring what I was doing. I wasn't, you hear about those kids that like their parents are super strict on them and they just go wild when they get the chance. Did you do that?
It's literally me. They were super strict. I went freaking wild.
Did you?
I was like, what rules? I can be home anytime I want.
Oh, to be fair, like there were things that I wasn't allowed to do that I fully like took advantage that nobody was telling me otherwise. But I didn't fully, like, because I was very aware and I watched other girls like go off like the scale with their craziness, and like you could just tell they came from very sheltered, like strict families, because they just took things to a whole new level. And I watched that happen, and everyone would like, I remember that people make comments of like, yeah, people understood like what their background was, which is why they were behaving like that.
Yeah, I used to state that as well, but I had a nice blending period because I snuck around a lot before I moved out.
So you kind of already started testing.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I'm not going to go too wild. I don't want to be an actual full noob at uni.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to phase myself in. But I didn't know that was going to happen. You know what? As part of that, when you live at home, especially in a chaotic South Asian home, there's no routine. Like, no. I don't think my parents have a routine. Well, they do have a routine. It's just like probably not a very like healthy routine in terms of life and like when you should eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, there's routines, but there's also a lot of, I don't know if you experience this, but like changing minds constantly. I think this is partly why I became like so difficult with decision making. Like things would change last minute all the time.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like a plan would be set and then like the opposite would happen last minute. I'd be like, whoa, like what the hell? Like I thought we were set on this thing, and it would happen so often. And I think that was where the chaos came from, because there were like general routines and the way things were done. But like when decisions were made about things, like
they were never decisions.
They were never decisions. Yeah.
I think that's really translated for me into my adulthood. I've taken like a huge fear of commitment, and like
same.
I struggle with like relationship-based commitments. Not that I was like, yeah, like that. Not in that sense. It's in the sense of like sticking it out with one thing. Like. For example, I really struggle to book things in advance.
Same. I do that now. I can't book a train ticket until like the morning of.
Yeah, same. And it's so annoying because like I know how much money I'm costing myself by doing that, and I know. So I talked to my mum about this because I was like, look, I've learned this from you guys.
It's all your fault.
Yeah. But why do you do it? So we were having a conversation about it, and she was like, because plans might change, and if you book if I book a train today for 6 months time, in 6 months time I don't know what I'm going to be doing and like what I'd rather have been doing instead of the train. But then I spoke to my friends about this, and I have friends who are like, they will book their annual leave a year in advance and their holidays are all booked, and I feel like that's so peaceful. Like it could be so peaceful. And I talked to them about how they deal with the fact that like, what if other things come up and they want to change their plans, and they're like, well, I can't change my plans because I've made my plans. Like my plans have been made, so now I can stop worrying. It's like if something else comes up, it's a very easy way to say no. And it blew my mind a little bit because that's obvious.
But I would get the anxiety of like having to change it because
no, but you don't change it because your plans are made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would never have thought that. That would not have been my first thought. I'd be like, oh, now I have to go and change this thing.
Yeah.
That's so strange because I know people that book their holidays in advance. I can't even book a holiday in advance.
The same.
It's like a couple of weeks before. I'm like, I really need a holiday, but I can't. I'm not gonna wait. I get to the point where I literally just can't wait anymore. I need to like do something, but it'll be max a week in advance or 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm very similar. Well, I'm trying to be better, but definitely used to be very similar. But that definitely came from like the chaos of like not being able to make decisions and stuff like that. But just going back very briefly, so when we're talking about like lack of routine and all this stuff, I've taken that plus this struggle with commitment into my adulthood, where like I really struggled for the first few years out of uni because there's absolutely no way I was going to have a routine at uni. but post-uni in my job really struggled with setting a routine for myself, like eating at the same time, sleeping at the same time, like booking things in advance, like just being a very
organized.
But this is what I struggle with, because I'm quite organized. Like, I love being organized, I love being productive, but with those aspects of my life, I really struggle. And those have come, I know they've come directly from the period of time I lived at home.
That's so interesting, because I always feel like I'm an oxymoron for like being a really organized, like I like to have all my ducks in a row. I like to have like know where everything is and know what's going on, but I'm also chaos. Like, things are last minute, things will change, and it's almost like I prepare for that because I know that's just how I have to be. Like, that's the only way the anxiety is kept at bay, if I know that I can change things last minute. I hate the commitment of, oh, I've booked this, and then having to worry about if I have to like figure out how I'm going to change or refund my ticket or
so you've planned for it. So you planned for being unplanned. Oh my god. Literally, you're blowing my mind a little bit, because so have I. I'm like thinking in my head, all of I make so much content around money. All my money is organized into sinking funds for all these like things that I do unplanned.
Because you know it's going to happen. So you just mold like the way you organize your life around it.
Damn, that's crazy.
It's so mind-blowing, isn't it? It's just weird, like when I heard you speak about like how organized you were, and I was like, because I almost feel silly for saying I'm a really organized person, or I like being organized, because it appears that I'm not. If I'm doing things last minute, how organized are you? But I am. My mum
does that to me, My mum knows I'm like type A, like I would die for Notion. And I love organizing things. I love having a timetable of like time blocking all this stuff.
Oh my gosh, same.
But then it comes to like booking, like to come here.
Like to-do lists make me so happy. Like just like writing stuff down, having stuff like ready to
organizing
like,
your brain.
Things. Yeah, having everything in. It's like,
and it's almost like, especially with trips, I can't actually do that part of organizing for the trip until I've booked it as well.
Same. Literally. And the tickets, everything has to be set, and then I'm like, okay, itinerary.
Do you think it's like a form of compartmentalizing as well? Like in terms of like, okay, so I know this trip is coming up. I'll book it when I know I have the time to book it. Then I have the mental capacity to like start organizing and doing everything for it.
To an extent, I think, because I get very overwhelmed if I have to think about something for too long. So say I booked a trip 6 months in advance, I'd be thinking about that trip for the entire 6 months, and I can't cope with that. Like thinking that, oh, that's coming, so I need to plan for it, and then not planning for it because it's not close enough. Whereas if I'm already close to it, I know that that's the time I can focus on it, and then I only have a limited amount of time, so then I just get it done, and then I'm happy. Whereas if I've done it too far in advance, it's just that lingering thing that I'm like almost subconsciously nagging at myself to like get sorted.
Yeah. Oh my god. I think we've uncovered
organized the code of
inception.
It's so weird talking about it, like, and just knowing someone like operates in the same way, because I always feel a bit crazy.
Yeah, same. When you said you feel like an oxymoron, like I literally feel like I feel embarrassed at how disorganized I am, but how also organized I am. It's
but it
so
happens
weird.
It's in a lot of like parts of my life. You know what I was saying before, like I always call myself a contradiction, because it's like in certain aspects of my life I do the opposite. Like it's like the opposite action, but they both like make sense together. It's like really weird.
Yeah, like planning for unplanned. Wait, being planned for the unplanned.
Yeah.
Being disorganized. Yeah, organized.
Organizing your disorganization.
In my head, that's why I was like Inception, because this is disorganizing the. Oh my god, I can't even think. I can't even verbalize it.
It's hard to put into words, like how.
This is just another thing we have in common.
Yeah, on the list of many.
List of incredibly many.
Does that actually think it comes from?
This is also part of our double.
Yeah. Oh, wait. That's a whole element in itself of like the double life of like just on two ends of the spectrum at the same time. Like I'm organized and I'm really disorganized.
My mind is literally in pieces.
shattered.
Oh my God, that's actually, it's completely blown my mind. We're fully double life people.
Yeah, in every sense of the word. Isn't it strange?
It's so strange.
But it's also like mentally really like taxing. It's so...
Oh, yeah.
It's so exhausting to know that you... It's like that battle that I was talking about before. It's like there's opposite sides of you that's, your thinking pattern. And you're constantly like battling between the two and trying to just find a middle ground and a balance. And
I think
it's like chaos in your head.
Yeah, I think you really need to like learn how to be bored, because it really helps. Genuinely. As
in be okay with being bored?
No, as in like be bored, as in like have no thoughts.
But I do have times where, it's very minimal, to be honest.
That's what I mean.
I'm bored is so minimal. Yeah, it's weird. But I never saw being bored as a good thing. That's why.
Yeah, you need to watch. So I make a
point of making sure that I'm so busy that I'm not bored. You know? But there's also just so much to do. There's so little time.
Yeah, there's no time to be bored.
So I feel like guilty for even feeling bored sometimes. Like the little time that I do, I'm like, well, there's something to do, so get it
done. Might as well do it.
Yeah.
Or think about doing it.
Yeah.
Or think about doing it at a later date.
Yeah. Panic about it, at least.
Our biggest takeaway is kind of like, I think moving out is super important. And if you're thinking about doing it, I would push for doing it.
I guess in some ways, you just have to think like, because a lot of the time when you're trying to do something like that and you're getting a bit of pushback, I think you just have to be a bit like sensitive in the way that you're going about it, just so that you can get your desired outcome. Like, depending on what your actual genuine reasons are for moving out, I don't think you should ever really share. So say it was like you just don't want to be in your family home, or there's too much chaos, like all the things that are tied to if you're living in the dysfunctional family, you don't want to put the reason on that. I would always like just put it on work or school, or there's like other reasons for like why you need to move out.
Wait, I wouldn't even say, it probably just depends the kind of relationship you have with the people that you're leaving by moving out. I wouldn't even give a reason. I would kind of...
Do you not feel like you have to explain yourself though? Because you get asked like, well, why do you need to move out when there's food here and, you know, like people need you here? And
I'm not going to lie. I would do the whole forgiveness over permission thing. Because I feel like if you explain while you're still in the house, then you're creating more avenues for the last period of time you have in the house to be like, your questions, why are you doing this? You need to like have a really strong argument to do it. Whereas if you find a place, shift your stuff, no questions, and then come through and then be like, oh, I've done this. This is it. Like, this is why.
That's really hard to do when you're literally living at home. Like you can't like secretly.
Not secretly move out, but I would probably just do stuff unexplained, and then explain later.
I'm just trying to think like how, like, I guess because you lived at uni and then you moved out. Is that what you're basing off? Because I guess if you're literally living at home, and so I moved out for uni, but then I moved back in.
So you moved all your stuff back in?
Yeah. Right. So I literally, like, you know, you empty your student accommodation. So you literally move back home. So I'm just going from the perspective of like, if you're basically living at home.
You're in your childhood bedroom.
Yeah. Then I would find it hard to, like, I would never have felt that I would have been able to just like go find somewhere and just like subtly move out and then tell them, oh, by the way, I'm gone.
I don't live here no more.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I feel like
that's my new address.
Yeah.
Can you forward all my mail, please?
Yeah, I feel like...
Okay, I get what you mean a bit more. I'm trying to think. I just want to avoid... Like, I want people to avoid being in the situation where, like, they feel like they have to ask for permission or get that permission or validation to then feel like it's okay to do it. Because I don't know if you'll get that.
I don't think you need to ask for permission. Because I definitely didn't ask for permission. But it was very much that you do get asked...
Did you secretly move out?
No, I didn't. I think I didn't really like express. Well, mine was a weird situation because they knew, like, my family knew I wanted to move out for years before I did, And when I ended up finding a place to live, it was very much, I don't know if they genuinely believed this, but the intention of buying was to rent the place out. It was like an investment, which is still an investment even though I'm living in it. But I think I struggle to believe that they didn't know, but it was just not talked about. The fact that I was moving out wasn't talked about, but they were fully aware of the buying. They were fully involved. They were supportive of it. And then when I bought it, then that's when like this phasing of me like moving in started, because then I had to renovate it a bit. Like, it wasn't in a position where it could have been rented, even if that was like my personal plan. It had to be like renovated, like I had to get certain things sorted, and I was spending so much time like coming, because nobody else was doing, like, it was my property, I'd bought it, like it was no one else's responsibility to do any of that but me. So I would spend, and by that point it was middle of COVID, so I was working from home, so I'd bring my work laptop, I'd come, like I'd have electricians coming over, like people sorting things out, and I was doing all that by myself. But it kind of phased into this, like I started spending significantly more and more time here because I was like getting the actual work done to the property. And then I think the first time I ever stayed like the night, I never went back, but it wasn't like it wasn't like this is the moment I'm moving out type of moment. I never had that.
You were like, I see an opportunity, I'm taking it.
Basically. So I think what happened was I had a work trip to London or something. So I stayed here the night because there's a direct train from here to London, and it was just a much easier like commute. So that was my reason for staying. And then yeah, the rest was history.
That's so funny. That's basically like an extreme version of like secretly moving out.
Yeah, to be fair, like it is the whole, like it didn't like ask for the permission, but at that point I was big old, like I was 24. I think when you get to your 20s, like you can't be asking your parents for permission. I'm sorry, but it's just such a silly concept that, Mummy, can I like move out, or can I like buy a certain food? Like, you're 20 something years old. Like,
I know, but then if your parents have, if that's the culture you have in your household, then it's difficult.
Well, I get that, but then I also had that culture, but I also had the mindset that you grow up, like you have to grow up at some point, because I know there are people, they're 30s, 40s, they're still living at home and they're still doing these things, maybe because they're appeasing their family or they didn't want to do anything to upset them. But I think that, but then you do get the guilt. Like, I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah, that's what I mean, kind of like by the whole permission thing. I mean, in terms of like moving out, but knowing that your parents might not be okay with it. Not that they've strictly said, no, you cannot move out because I asked you. It's more of the like needing their validation.
I think you have to accept that they won't be okay with it, especially with South Asian parents, because I don't think they ever are unless you're married. Because
well, yeah, depending on like,
in their heads, there's a certain sequence of events that have to happen,
yeah,
and that is not the right sequence. So
it might be right for some people. Like if you've actually genuinely met someone, you're not fussed about living by yourself.
I mean, as in like your parent, like if you're someone that wants to move out, your parents aren't gonna agree typically because of their sequence in their head of how things should happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't have to live alone. Like you don't have to do any of this. But for someone that wants to but feels like they can't, you kind of have to assume that it's going to be difficult because you know that you're in a situation where it's not the norm and it's not typically what is expected of you. And when you do something that's not the standard and not by people's expectations, that you're going to get a bit of a backlash from it. But I think in a sense, you know your parents best, you know your family best, you will know from like other experiences of you like testing the waters of pushing boundaries what the outcome is likely to be. So you just got to use your own like prior experiences to judge if it's worth it for you to like make that decision and then have to deal with the consequences of it.
Yeah.
You'll find your own way, and not everybody's way is going to be the same. Like you can get advice from people, but ultimately you kind of have to just navigate things in the best way for you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's a right or wrong. There's only right or wrong in terms of like, if you take a certain path or if you do it in a certain way, there's potential that you could damage relationships there. But that's a risk that you take depending on like how you go about it.
Yeah. And what about preventing that, or not preventing, but dealing with the pressure of being married before you do that?
This one's difficult for me because I didn't ever really experience any pressure to actually get married. And I think you mentioned this before, but I didn't actually realise how big of a deal it was to like not be married. Because
yeah, same.
I remember like when my mum talked about like she moved out before she got married. So it's kind of normal to me. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really see it as like, oh, I'm doing this like big thing that isn't meant to happen. Do you know what I mean?
I also think it's like quite nice to, like the way I've done it, and like now I can look back at what I've done, and what I've done is I've shown my mum, my parents, how capable you can be without needing to be married, and like they've only been convinced of that by seeing me. And I'm not particularly like, I'm not like crazy successful or anything like that. I've just made my way through life, and I'm turned out fine by not being married first.
Yeah.
And my mum's seen that, and like by virtue of the comment that she made to my nanny that, you know, I don't need to be married anymore. It's like, I'm fine. I can deal with, I've got my own back. She's seen it as like, it's almost like a case study. It's like I've proven it to her by accident. Like I didn't really mean to do that. So I don't know if that's also something that you can like keep in your heart and like know that, like, it just depends on like what your parents are like and what your family is like, I guess. But I don't know if like I could go back in time. I could try and sit my mum down and have a conversation and be like, look, everything's going to work out fine. I'm probably going to get married, but I'm going to do all these things first, and it's not going to matter that much at the end. And she might be quite upset about that at the beginning, but she's going to, like, if they love you and if they like respect you, they're going to let that happen. And they might be a bit difficult about it at the beginning, as most parents are and most South Asian parents are, but I would hope that they would just like settle into your life eventually.
I feel like South Asian parents can't be told though. Like you can't
Yeah.
tell them that, oh, everything's going to be okay. I feel like you almost have to prove to them.
Well, that's what I mean.
To begin with, like, but so for example, if you're living at home, I feel like you almost need to prove that you're capable of living alone. It would be hard to do that, but I almost think, because I remember there was comments made just because I didn't cook because I was too busy because I was working, for example. I feel like there was the assumption that I couldn't function by myself. Like I wouldn't be able to take care of myself. Like there'd be certain comments made because if I didn't do things around the house, or it's like, well, how could you ever like move out and be self-sufficient if you can't do that at home? And it's like, sometimes you kind of have to prove that you're capable of those things. And I feel like I did that because I literally lived 4 years out on my own and I survived. Yeah. But it's almost like sometimes your parents don't just see you as a little kid and see you as someone that's really defenseless and like can't do anything, especially as a girl. So you almost have to try and prove that. And what I noticed, because I get this question a lot about moving out and how to do it, but a lot of people are trying to rely on their parents to help them do it, as in financially. And I'm like, if you are ready to move out, you got to be
you have to do it yourself,
getting it from your own pocket. Like, you can't be expecting your parents to pay your rent. You can't be expecting your parents to give you handouts if they're not happy with you making that decision and you still want to go and do it. That's not going to work. So I think you really need to be secure financially, and you need to be really like good with your own money,
but like happy enough to try and be secure. So like happy enough to try and find a job to pay your rent, to try and sort out your own bills. Like that willingness to try and not have a safety blanket, I think that's the whole point, and that's the whole benefit behind living by yourself and moving out.
Well, I feel like you do have to be secure, because you have to know that you're going to be able to like pay your bills. It depends, like if you're renting versus buying, it will be slightly different, but you still have to be secure in yourself financially to not have to rely on anyone else, because you're putting huge financial burdens on yourself to like pay bills and be self-sufficient. And if you're not in a stable job, if you're not the type of person that like wants like a stable job, or you're just like living off your family, you're not gonna move out, mate. Like, you just gotta be realistic, I think, about these things and take it seriously if that's like a serious decision you want to make. And I feel like sometimes families won't take you seriously if you're gonna tell them that you've got these plans, but you don't actually have any idea of how you're going to make it happen for yourself.
Oh yeah, because that just comes back to like proving to them that you can do this.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you can't just be like an idea. I think that's why it made it easier to just do it once I'd proven. Like, I bought the property, like I did it. Like, nobody had to help me, or as in financially, nobody was funding my life, so it wasn't really a burden to anyone else. There was no reason to say no. You have to give people no reason to say no.
Yeah.
And I think the more that you kind of ask for like the support, whether that's financial or otherwise, or like get other people to help, you're just like creating barriers for yourself.
Barriers and like entitlement for them as well.
Yeah, because you ultimately, if you're gonna actually live by yourself, you have to be the person that does things for yourself, and that's in all aspects, not just like you're going cooking and you're cleaning. You have to be self-sufficient in every way.
Yeah, I agree. So that can be a kind of like a goal, I guess, for moving out.
Yeah, you could set yourself targets to like, what type of person do I need to be the self-sufficient adult that can cope with living on their own and do that successfully.
Yeah.
And I think if you start modeling those behaviors, like I remember before I actually moved out, like I spent a few years at home, but because I was working, but then we had the exams and studying. So between the two, I was just so overwhelmed, and I think it was a good time to be at home because I was dependent on like having other people cooking and like family around and that support. But I think when I started to get to the stage where I was comfortable in my job, like I could stand on my own feet a little bit more, like I felt like I was becoming a bit more like sure of myself and just being able to do things, or like just organize my life a bit better. Then I actually started like cooking more at home, like just doing things that I knew I would have to do on my own anyway, because to live alone, like I didn't want to have this big difference between being at home and then you live alone and then you're just like, oh my God, like,
what do I do?
Don't know what to do. Yeah. You don't want to be in that position. So I think you should just start adopting the traits and like doing the things that you would do if you were living alone, as in like all the things you'd have to do for yourself.
Yeah, do a little bit of a gap analysis and like look at think about the person who lives by themselves, write out all the things that they're going to have to do, write out all the things you currently do, and like what's the gaps? Like what are the things you're going to have to fill? And once you're at the person who has all these things that they do when they live alone, you can kind of start to make that transition.
I feel like it'll be a natural transition as well. It'll just kind of start falling into place because you're kind of leveled up and you're ready. You're at that stage where it's all going to fall into place naturally.
Yeah, and then the people in your household will see that as well if you're doing those things.
And you've like proved it, hopefully, at that point.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope it was helpful. I know that moving out as a brown girl is a very contentious topic, but it's something that a lot of girls kind of need advice on, and I definitely get a lot of questions on this all the time on my socials. So hopefully us talking about our experiences have helped a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so. I used to Google stuff like this all the time when I was younger.
There's no like conventional way of like doing it the right way there. I think that's the important thing to remember, is like nobody has the secret like method or weapon to like actually mastering.
Yeah,
it's always going to be difficult, and it's always going to be a challenge if you're in the environment where it's going to be made a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what we've said can ultimately just be like the advice we're trying to give can be put down to like little steps or like little bits of action that you can take to bring that like dream of moving out closer. I think it goes hand in hand with taking the pressure off being married, or like being pressured to be married as well. But yeah, I hope it was useful and that it was interesting to find out about more meanings behind double life. What's on this episode?
What was it?
I feel like it was this episode. We're talking about being disorganized and unorganized. Yeah, because we were living outside and...
I'm so confused.
Yeah, it was this... Oh my God. So we clearly talk...
Too much.
Way too much. We're forgetting what we actually said.
Was it definitely this
episode? It was this, because...
that went on a wild turn. We brought it back, though.
We brought it back. We brought it back, and we hope it's helped.
Yeah.
Still.
That was a ramble and a half then. Jeez. Well, do give us a review and let us know if you are liking these episodes that take many tangents. If you relate to a little part of it at least. But let us know if you did enjoy the episode, and give us a little like if you're watching on YouTube, and a comment down below just to let us know if you are relating or enjoying the episodes. And yeah, with that being said, we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.